Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, excited to break down another NFL primetime game. This one on tap for Sunday. We have the Cowboys visiting MetLife Stadium and the Giants. So excited to talk about that. As always, if you're new here, that subscribe button is not just for looks, baby. Dust it off. Give it a little smooch right on the lips. Please consider subscribing. It helps me grow. It helps me a ton. I appreciate that very much. We did just finish the Thursday night game. We got college football coming up. I know your agendas are probably packed full of content, consuming content from around the internet, so I'm glad you've stopped by here. Let's get into it. As I said, we have the Cowboys visiting the Giants. I'm not sure why I picked this horrendous color of orange to clash with everything on the screen, so we will move forward to the promos. Funny enough, everybody, and I mean DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, BetMGM, like you name it, they're all focused on. You can't blame them. College football tomorrow. I'm recording this Friday, and the NFL day games on Sunday. So we don't have a ton of specific promotions as it relates to Sunday Night Football. Keep your eye out for those. I will try to send out a tweet or some sort of message when those are available. But remember, the bets that I talk about at the end usually are things that I play as a part of these promos. So keep all of that in mind. Sorry we don't have anything up right now. Like I said, this game is going to be in New York on Sunday night. You know, the weather during the day doesn't look great. 96% chance of rain. I don't know how much that's going to clear up by the time of kickoff, and it's 48 hours away, so things could certainly change. So keep your eye on that. The total's set at like 46 right now, which I was leaning under anyway. So if it's looking like it's going to be pretty bad weather and that total doesn't come down at all, might be something to look at as we get closer to time. I will also say that I think these breakdowns, these previews are going to be more fun as we get to the season. Obviously, there's not a lot to go on besides last year and off-season moves, so that's where we end up. Last season, both of these teams went to the playoffs, won a game each, lost the second game. Cowboys were 12-5 during the regular season, and in the last 6 seasons in this matchup, this stat blew me away. The Cowboys are 11-1 in this series. All right, so they play each other twice a year because they're in the same division. So the Cowboys have dominated this series for before COVID even was in our vocabulary, right? A long time. Giants last year 9-7, but you know you got to look at how they started 6-1. People were talking about all kinds of things with this team, and then they went 3-6 from then on out. So kind of fell apart at the end of the season. I prefer to be on teams that looked good at the end of the season, like we saw with the Lions last year, right? Ended the season well, came into the season with some momentum, as we saw on Thursday. So something to keep in mind there. Looking at the offenses last season, the top line here is the Cowboys, bottom line is the Giants. We see that the Cowboys were top 5 in points scored, scoring almost 28 points a game. And their weaknesses really were just in the turnovers, 1 interception a game, 2 turnovers a game. Their rushing was the highlight of their offense. They were great in the red zone, converting touchdowns at 71%, and their passing game was okay. I think this year will be certainly improved. I think getting used to Amari Cooper's absence last year was tough on Dak, but I think his rapport with CeeDee Lamb, with the addition of Brandon Cooks this offseason, and with his continued chemistry with Michael Gallup, I do think that he will have a tremendous year. So looking at the Giants down below in that second line, kind of middle of the pack, an overall points scored, plays, and yards. They didn't throw a lot of picks, but they also didn't pass a ton. As you can see, their pass attempts were one of the worst in the league, and their passing yards a game, pretty bad. And when you have a guy like Saquon Barkley, that can be expected. So they did have quite a few rushing yards a game, 148. You know, Daniel Jones can run the ball himself. So, I expect similar numbers this year, although with the addition of Darren Waller, which we will talk about, I do think we see the Giants be a little more aggressive in the passing game. Looking at some defensive numbers for each of these teams, again, Cowboys are on the top, very similar in points allowed, about 20 and 22 points a game for each team. The only weaknesses really from the Cowboys were the plays that they allowed, which, as you can see, 64.5 or 64.8 is red, whereas 63.5 is yellow. So it's a little bit of an illusion here to the eyes that you think they're so much worse when it's not that much of a difference. They allow less yards defensively than the Giants did. Cowboys were pretty solid against the pass, okay against the run. And if the Giants did have a weakness, it was in their rushing yards given up. Taking a look at the biggest roster moves for these teams, and I'm not telling anybody anything you don't know here, but Brandon Cooks joins the Cowboys, and so does Stephon Gilmore, a piece that I don't think a lot of people have talked about, and I believe will certainly be talked about as we enter this season. A great corner to fit an already solid pass defense. They did lose Ezekiel Elliott and Dalton Schultz. We saw Dalton Schultz get pretty comfortable in this offense, and we found Dak Prescott leaning on him a lot. Now, this is an offense that uses the tight end quite a bit. They draft Schumacher from Michigan, and they have Jake Ferguson. So I think they will find a way to fill the hole that Schultz has left, but it is still a loss. As far as Zeke goes, you could see that they transitioned to Tony Pollard pretty early in the season last year. Now, Zeke did get his carries, and he got them at the goal line. He scored 12 touchdowns to Pollard's 9. So he certainly contributed to this team, but not in the way that we're used to him contributing. Ultimately, they draft Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State. I don't think he's going to play an immediate role in this offense, but I think Zeke's absence is not going to be as detrimental as maybe it looks on paper. As far as the Giants, Darren Waller is the biggest addition that they had, and we'll talk about their receiving core. Actually, let's just talk about it right now. So we'll jump over here to my questions, and my question is, can Darren Waller be enough for Daniel Jones? If you look at this team's weakness last year, it was not the run game. It was not Daniel Jones's dual threat abilities, and it was not Saquon Barkley's running abilities. It was who's going to catch the ball. Sterling Shepard, he fell into a black hole, into the abyss. Has anyone seen him? Okay? The shepherd is supposed to look after lost sheep, but a Sterling Shepard is the lost sheep. Right? So who are these guys? We'll play the same game we played on the Kansas City video. Do you know them? Have you met them? Okay, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, and who is that? Darius Slayton, right? It's the who's who at the wide receiver position. Now, I will say this. Hodgins came on at the end of last season pretty strong, and he looked to be someone that that Jones could rely on. I do think Waller is a tremendous add, and I think if he can be healthy, because he's already questionable for week 1, they did say he was probably going to play, but if Waller could be healthy, I think this offense will be fine, but I do have questions about these 3 guys. We'll see. And my questions for the Cowboys are, can Dak ignore the noise? Now, I hate to get emotional here. I hate to get sensitive. I hate to get soft. But I feel like Dak gets criticized more than many of the quarterbacks in this league. Everybody's always picking on him in some way. All the analysts have something to say about him. He just can't quite. Well, you got to limit those interceptions. I think he's set up perfectly right now. The defense on the other side of the ball for his team is going to put him in a lot of games to win. He has a great run game, he has a great offensive line, and he has weapons on the offense. I think this is the year for Dak. I think people are going to be talking about Dak Prescott a lot more this year, and I've answered my question. He's going to ignore the noise, and he's going to win the NFC East. There you have it. As far as the numbers go for this game, Dallas opens as a 3.5-point favorite. They are minus 170 on the money line, and the Giants, if you like them, take them on FanDuel at plus 152. Like I said, minus 3.5 is the line right now, although that is getting the benefit of some juice resistance here at plus 100. So some places maybe you can grab it at minus 3 if you like the Cowboys side. And the total's at 45.5. I like to think before I look at these lines where I expect the total to be. And for this one, I said 46. So that tells me I'm staying far away from this total. I am right on the nose, which means I don't have a lean whatsoever. My leans are as follows. Here are the bets. And if we look at my wins and losses from Thursday night, we see a big 0 for 4. So we took Marvin Jones over him. 2 of them were overthrown, and he dropped the other 2. So I hate, again, to make excuses, but that was a good bet. We just lost. His overpassing yards, of course, did not cash, and his touchdown, of course, did not cash. And we played a stepped up same game parlay boost on FanDuel, 4.4 units. And we did not cash that because we needed some of those legs. So again, I'm tracking all of these picks for record keeping, but I am not endorsing these as profitable plays, EV plays, even good plays. I am saying if the books give me some sort of incentive to spend money with them in terms of a boost, a risk-free bet, an insurance, anything of the matter, this is where I'm gravitating. But I'm keeping the record just in case. All right. So Daniel Jones over 204 yards, I think is fantastic. He's going to be at home. He's going to have Darren Waller, new weapon, new shiny toy. And in games versus the Cowboys, I believe he's hit over 204.5 in his last, I want to say it's 4 out of the last 6 games. So, they play a lot in the cold too, and I should go back and look and see if the games he didn't hit were in the cold. I should have had that written down, so I apologize. But bottom line, I think if they are trailing in this game, they're going to have to abandon the run. I think the Cowboys are going to stop or contain Saquon Barkley as much as they can, which is going to force Daniel Jones into some long second and third down plays, which are passing down. So I like that line, 204. I would have put this closer, 220, 225. Isaiah Hodgins to score a touchdown anytime at 4-1 is, in my opinion, a good value spot. Now, this is not something I'm throwing a ton at, all right? I'm going to call it a 0.75 unit play for tracking purposes, but to end 2022, he scored a touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games. Does that mean anything? No, but it tells me that Daniel Jones is looking his way. And besides the addition of Darren Waller, you could argue Paris Campbell, but I don't see any threat to his targets by what they've added in the offseason. So Isaiah Hodgins has that rapport with Daniel Jones. They found the end zone 4 times to end the season last year. So at 4-1, I like the bet. So that is, I think, a great spot over there on DraftKings. And finally, this was one, you ever have those bets that you look at and then you don't bet it and you're like, why didn't I? All right. This is one of those. So Deuce Vaughn is the running back that the Cowboys drafted this year in the draft. They get rid of Zeke. Last year, the Cowboys had 24 rushing touchdowns and 5 different players scored. Now, that's over the course of the season. It's not in week 1, okay? So I get that doesn't necessarily correlate here. But look at Deuce Vaughn's odds to score a touchdown. MGM has him at plus 280, which is abysmal. That's ridiculous. Something is wrong with them. Caesars at plus 550, DraftKings at plus 600, Canby Books, Unibet, Bet Rivers plus 700, and then FanDuel is listing him at 9-1. So that got me thinking, right? Pollard, is probably going to get more of the looks, but on the off chance that Deuce Vaughn is in for a red zone play or two and has a shot at the end zone, I think they're going to want to get the rookie some work. So at 9-1 against a team who doesn't necessarily defend the run all that well in the Giants, give me Deuce Vaughn to score a touchdown at 9-1. Now we're going to just call this a half unit play for tracking purposes. And again, if FanDuel gives me some sort of incentive to bet this, maybe I'll throw it in as a leg, okay? But I do think there's value there. Definitely caught my eye. And that is what I would roll with. As always, guys, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to try and continue to crank these out for every primetime game. I make no promises, but that is my expectation. That is my goal. So if you like the content, please, please, please help me out. We'll see you next time.